What red flags were there in your past toxic friendships? Not feeling comfortable being honest without an overreaction. Always walking on eggshells. 2 girls I was friends with, different time periods of my life. Both of them used me as a raincoat, meaning they barely acknowledged me while their actual friends were present, but asking me to stay with them after school or spend time with me only when they didn't have anyone else to spend their time with. I was depressed. They offered to heal me. She challenged literally everything I said with something worse that happened to her and would say rude things just claiming to be honest. If you are having a problem and you go to them, they quickly relate it to their problems and take over the conversation. 1. Only ever messaged me when she needed something or to talk about herself. Never asked about me. 2. Would make fun of my insecurities on purpose. 3. Would humble brag about things and be very condescending, i.e., "I'm so stupid I only got 90% on that test. What did you get 75/0? That's really good for you though." 4. Would always ask me to do expensive things and then get upset when I said no because I didn't have the money. She was very privileged. 5. In the same vein, would constantly ask me why I didn't just get a car because me having to catch public transport was an inconvenience to her. 6. Was super horrible and mean to me whenever she was drunk, and then if I ever brought it up she would say it's just cause I'm insecure or blame her anxiety depression. 7. Would ring me saying she was going to heal herself and then it would be my responsibility to stop her and calm her down. Happened a lot. She would say things like, "As soon as you hang up I'm gonna heal myself," so I felt that I had to do as she said and keep talking to her. 8. Would lie and manipulate me into thinking that my other friends hated me. 9. Would comment on my body or food knowing full well that I was recovering from anorexia. "You've really gained weight," or "Wow, that's a lot of food." 10. Would isolate herself and not talk to me, or anyone, for a while and then make vague posts on social media about how she has no friends and everyone's deserted her and nobody cared about her. There's loads more, but my blood pressure is rising just thinking about all this bullshit, so I'm gonna stop there, lol. Emotional vampire. She unloaded all her problems on me and never listened in return. Nothing is ever her fault. Even cheating on her spouse multiple times and becoming pregnant by one of her affairs was somehow her husband's fault. She was a leech. And by all accounts, she still is. I used to be a toxic friend with a very possessive streak. I resented a friend of mine having other friends, or even worse, love interests, and used a mix of subtle jokey put downs and unpredictable cold disinterest to slowly destroy their confidence whenever I wanted to punish a behavior. Thank you for sharing. It's really great to see someone who has recognized their behaviors and moved to improve them. If I may ask, what happened to this friendship? It was a pattern with several friends since childhood, I'd say. I would make high intensity friendships and then burn them down. But the breaking point was with this girl I respected on many levels, yet ended up treating horribly and creating a very messed up, abusive friendship. When we fell apart she stopped talking to me but also never tried to get any revenge. She just sort of removed herself from everyone around her. I genuinely missed her and realized how badly I treated her, but I never really knew what to say. Years passed and we went on with our lives separately just to reconnect again a while back. By weird coincidence, we instantly clicked. That great intellectual connection we had was still there intact. Just free from all the bullshit of younger us. We are friends again. And I keep my predatory possessive side in check. With time I learned how. Great person, and I'm very lucky we're back in each other's lives again. Asked for space in the mornings for a week so I can study. Flipped out and acted like I was being unreasonable. One-upping you. And shutting you down. I had a friend last year who I connected with on many levels. But she literally couldn't go one conversation without doing both of these to me. Example. I'd say, "I'm coming down with a cold and I've got to go to work." She snaps, "Wow, too bad for you." I've done that every day for a week. Or in a group, I bring up an idea of where to eat. "That place sucks. Let's go to." If they are randomly rude and cutting towards you for no reason, they aren't your friend. They resent you and aren't mature enough to just cut you off. Do yourself a favor and find another friend. I was always the one who texted first. They never actually initiated contact with me. Took me forever to realize that obviously they were more important to me than I was to them. The only thing I can say in defense of that person, because I've suffered from this, is the anxiety associated with initiating a conversation in general. Many times we want to text you. We want to talk. But we also get these intrusive thoughts such as, what if they don't want to talk to me? Or am I bothering them by texting? The thoughts are completely irrational and usually based on nothing, but they can't be helped, and they invoke a sort of fear that eventually just makes us put down the phone and not call. Everybody she knew was out to get her, but not me because I was special. Super ducking manipulative. They only wanted to drink. If we were just chillin' at my house, they would bring a 12 rack. Then complain they were bored and wanted to go to the bar. Before I knew it, I was getting drunk 3-4 times a week. Our friendship used to be playing games, hanging out with friends. But it evolved into just sitting on a couch drinking. It's an easy trap to get pulled into. She wasn't responding to messages for days but spammed and got pissed off if I don't respond within an hour. He was barely able to afford anything and we were living together at the time. His job kept promising a promotion which never came. He was a driver and was pretty lazy. I'd loan him a few bucks here and a few dollars there. It started adding up. My dad offered him a job making like $15 an hour plus overtime. Dude would have been making $25.30 per hour in 5 years' time. He declined it because he knew that promotion would come any day now and he liked sitting on his ass driving all day. Eventually, our lease is up. He hadn't paid up on bills for a few months and didn't pay last month's rent. He ended up owing me like $1,200 in the long run. We are no longer friends. She only came to me when she needed help. Even going so far as bombarding me with calls knowing full well that I was at work and couldn't pick up the phone. When she didn't need my help, she almost never replied to my messages. Told me I was her best friend, and when we hung out, she spent most of the time on the phone. Also, she kept going on about how unfair life was and how everyone was an asshole to her. When you are obviously the one who cares more about the friendship. If you would drop everything to hang out, and they flake on you constantly, it's probably toxic. She was always starting stuff with my other friends. Like she thrived off of the drama. It made me uncomfortable. But I sort of tolerated it. Then she rallied one of my other friends against me for a perceived slight. And when I didn't let it get to me, outwardly at least, she outed me to the school. Cut ties with her and didn't look back. My friend group had a good bit less drama for a while. But that was high school and I only talked to 2 people from then. Now, the number one sign of toxicity in any relationship, friendship or romance, is always insecurity. If somebody is painfully insecure, it's inevitably going to turn into abuse. Once they're comfortable with you. Especially if booze or drugs are involved. I'm not saying every insecure person is going to abuse you. Obviously some people are just shy. But almost every abusive person I've ever met was insecure first. Problems with booze or drugs simply aggravate the anger issues and boundary issues they keep hidden inside. A person who's insecure is paranoid about being hurt. Even when there is no evidence in reality that that will actually happen. An abuser takes that paranoia one step further and lashes out in an attempt to hurt you first. I was expected to put her first on my days off. But the second she got a new boyfriend, she would disappear and not answer her phone for weeks at a time. I was then always expected to pick up the pieces and spend 24/7 with her when her relationships would fail. She just had a really ducked up outlook about life. And expected everyone to constantly cater to that. And her constant self-deprecation, compliment fishing. It was exhausting. And eventually I just stopped contacting her. She never contacted me again. So I guess the feeling was mutual. Whenever I found courage to bring something up about our relationship that I felt was not right, she always said, "I'm so glad you brought that up." And in the following conversation there were usually a "we must be honest with each other." Sounds good, right? The thing was that I always left the conversation feeling worse than before. Because she was manipulative as hell and played all the right strings with "you are so brave to bring this up," and it was "I'm so glad we can be honest with each other." But in the end it turned out it was always because of something I did or was not paying enough attention to. Example, me. "Remember that thing you said that time? I've been thinking about that a lot and it actually was quite hurtful. Oh, OMG, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to. It's so good you bring this up. I don't want you to be sad." And when we go ending with "it was actually me bringing that subject up first and therefore it was me who caused her to say that hurtful thing. Cause you know, she did not mean to hurt my feelings. But it was my fault she did. You see what I mean? Did not see this until after the relationship ended. Extremely manipulative and toxic, never admitting she did something wrong. Using all the colorful positive words to make it sound like she understood but still always blaming me instead. I moved towns and joined a new friend group during high school. There was always a couple people in the group who got a pass for being obnoxious or doing something ducked up by everyone else, saying, "Oh, that's just X. That's just the way he is." One of them eventually got shunned for punching his girlfriend at a party. The other one still to this day gets a pass by a lot of people just because they've been friends since they were kids. I wouldn't be surprised if he was still stealing their booze and trying to duck girls who are in relationships. So yeah. Watch out for peripheral friends and acquaintances being conditioned to accept their shitty behavior. It's probably only going to get worse. As I'm reading these, it is sad. There should be some kind of checklist of 10 or 15 items that show if you should dump someone. One of those, if you checked 0, congrats. This is a good friend. 1. 5. Person is okay. 5-10, this is borderline friend. Keep them under watch and maybe slowly edge them out of your life. 11-15, get rid of this person. They are toxic. Because sometimes it is hard to see the forest for the trees. Hard to analyze. But checklists are easy to answer one question at a time. And results are pretty undeniable. I don't know. Clinginess. Like. Excessive. She'd call me every day and spin yarn for hours. Yeah. It's nice only the first 3 times you do it. But every day I just plain don't have that much to talk to. Her other friends made plans excluding her. Her reaction. Delete, block the friends. Okay. I have trouble making friends. She told me that early on. And I was thinking, she's probably busy. etc whatever. Nope. Every time someone tells you this, run. There's always damn good reason they have trouble keeping friends. I think I'm pretty smart is something she said all the time. Opposite of truth. Ignorant and myopic with good analytical skills does not a smart person make. If someone has a problem with me, they can say it. I'm willing to listen. Complete bullshit. Another red flag if someone says that. Because it usually means they go upbeat when they're called on anything. Her ex had to get a restraining order because she stalked him online and also would leave his new girlfriend alone. That RO was my sign to note the duck out. Sure enough. She flounced out of my life over something minor, and when I wouldn't accept her repeated apologies and blocked her, she sent me a nasty message from a fake profile. She still lurks on my blogs and social media. 1. I was always the one to suggest things to do meetups. And would have to wait until she felt like answering going. Would often answer with simply can't or no. Okay. Actually prefer this to lame excuse, but rude. Never offered an alternative. And don't think she ever suggested meeting up herself. Come to think of it. 2. Chronically late. Have wasted probably days of my life waiting for her to show up, days before cell phones. 3. Would ask me questions. Then interrupt or roll her eyes when I was talking. Made me feel like I must be so long-winded and boring to listen to. But no. She def talked more than me. She was just a rude choojaff what I had to say. Loved gossip though. Would absolutely grill me on problems I was having, which I confused for a long time as her being a good, concerned friend. Just to get all the juicy details. And would then spend hours offering me unsolicited advice, while actively ignoring her own problems. I think her intentions were good on that particular point. But she would be very judgmental and have strong opinions on what I needed to do. Finally realized I never looked forward to meeting her. Instead I was only looking forward to going out. But the thought of seeing her made me on edge anxious. Not a good sign. They would talk about me behind my back. It made every interaction with them feel fake. Eventually you can't put up a facade anymore. Getting high went from something to enhance our activities to the activity. We started dabbling in harder stuff. There'd be days where I just didn't feel like it. And my friends would show up at my house and pound on my door to try and convince me to go with. It was such a weird thing to be pushy about that I started to back off and avoid them. Eventually I just cut off all contact because I planned on joining the military. This was about 9-10 years ago, while I'm old, and they are doing about what you'd expect, working dead-end jobs and half their pictures on social media are them getting high. It's not even like I was paying for it or even contributing. I was the poor kid. I'm not even fun. I just eat too much and pass TF out. The need to one-up you when you are just talking about something that happened to you recently. Bringing people down a peg because they want to be on the higher peg. It can be very subtle. Anger at your happiness because it isn't theirs. Surprisingly, I hang out with people who interrupt all the time and really don't have much of a problem with it. It's an ADHD thing. Aside from that, it's no bueno. In high school, a friend of mine lined up all the girls in our friend group, organized by bob size, then proceeded to assign us a corresponding fruit to match our bob size. Mine were grapes. For your information. Girl used to stare at me while I was sleeping. She eventually stabbed me. Edit, I will add some background on it. I would wake up and catch her staring at me. She would either be right next to me or hovering over me. When I caught her she would say things like sorry. I'm just so fascinated by you, I can't help it. Act. While sleeping she stuck a knife in my leg. Why? Her reasoning was I didn't want anybody to take you from me. We have a restraining order now. I made the mistake of developing a friendship with someone who had previously been my teacher. Over the course of about 15 years. I'd participated in several small groups and trips that she facilitated and eventually we progressed from student teacher to friends. I don't know what I was thinking. Over the years, I'd seen that dynamic turn into disaster over and over with her and others. When I asked her what had happened, either she didn't know, the person had just disappeared without a word, or the person had done something to take advantage of her spiritual nature. In hindsight, she was always the victim who never played a part in the end of the relationship. I guess I figured that it'd somehow be different with me, given our long, amicable history. Big mistake. The first red flags came during an extended trip abroad, during which we spent part of the time in a formal group that she was facilitating, followed by 2 weeks of the two of us remaining in the country for vacation. After the rest of the group went home, she was unable to not be 100% in charge and I was unable to be completely subservient to her. There was a bit of tension, but I chalked it up to having different travel styles and mostly let it go. However, shortly after, I participated in another week-long workshop that she facilitated, during which she felt it necessary to share with the group very personal information about me that I'd confided during the vacation portion of our travel. It was a massive power play and entirely inappropriate. She justified it by saying that she was only coming from a place of tough love and a desire to encourage my spiritual growth. In the end, I learned that standing up and saying "Oh, duck, no, I'm out," can be a deeply spiritual experience. 1. Lousy thoughtless presents. I've told this story before. But one year for my birthday she gave me a pair of thick heavy socks with Christmas decorations all over them. My birthday is in the middle of summer and I live in the desert. At the time it was well over 100°F every day. 2. She interrupted me constantly. 3. One time I misunderstood something she said. And she immediately jumped down my throat and started yelling at me until I broke down crying. I had to beg her to say something nice and reassuring to me. And she never apologized. 4. She was very jealous and possessive. Not only with me but with all her friends. She would obsessively keep track of other people's Facebook activity. She often complained to me that her friends were paying more attention to other people on Facebook than they did to her. I'm not on Facebook. But one time she complained I was paying too much attention to another friend with whom I exchange emails regularly. He lives in another country. The concept that this was absolutely none of her business didn't register. There's more. But that's the main stuff I remember. I had a friend who would say I'm in love with you every few months. I'd gently turn them down and remind them that I was seeing their best friend and didn't like them in that way. They'd block me for a few weeks. Unblock me. Then resume conversation either pretending nothing happened. Or say sorry and say they were over me. Okay. They were my boyfriend's best friend so I stayed on good terms. Then we broke up, I was cheated on, and the friend tried to kiss me and get with me. I said sorry. I've just come out of this and I'm fragile. He says okay. We drift apart since I'm not with my ex anymore. Next thing I hear. He's telling my ex and his friend group that I tried to get with him and he didn't because he's too loyal. She became furious when I finally landed a full-time office job because I couldn't hang out with her as much. Equally furious when I started seeing someone seriously. Same reason. She kept spiraling deeper and deeper into crazy and expected my unconditional support no matter what she did. And she was doing some terrible things. Mostly having to do with what I firmly believed was a serious sex addiction. Cheating with 2 of her ex while they were with someone else. Keeping a rotation of men so she never went more than a week without sex. Finding guys on apps and Craigslist. Didn't matter if they were single or not. Sleeping with a stranger after he catcalled her. Literally left me at the mall to go home with him. Contracted HIV and kept sleeping with men without telling them. If they take off the condom it's their fault not mine. All the while increasingly clingy and possessive of me because I was her true friend. Ranted more than once that I should quit my job to be around her more. Finally slammed the door after she told me she was still having sex with strangers after she was diagnosed. Our last conversation was because her therapist told her she needed closure after I dumped her. The conversation ended with "So you didn't drop me because I have HIV now? You just think I'm a bad person?" Yes. Oh. Haven't talked to her in 5 years and still consider her to be my most abusive relationship. Even though it was between 2 straight women as best friends.